Michael Urch.
That's what they call me.
They sure do. Thanks for coming over. And thanks for being willing to sit down here for a conversation. You already mentioned that you did have a chance to listen to the conversation I had with Toby.
Yes, I did.
The bird clock is gone, put away for the season. So it won't make an appearance, but who knows what other noises will chime in here. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about you.
Oh, boy. Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So just kind of similar intro format into as what I did with Toby last week. Just want to hear a little bit more about you. Like I mentioned then, don't want to presume that everybody has a familiar acquaintance with your story and who you are and what brings you to this point of aspiring to serve as a pastor at Westview. And so want to use this time, especially as that introduction. And so then as people might have follow-up questions or topics that we won't touch on here this evening, they've got the next month and a half or so. I can't remember where or what day our membership meeting is in January. I want to say like the 10th or 11th. So close to a month away. Have time here in that time frame to ask whatever follow-up questions they might have. And maybe buy you coffee or lunch or something.
I always accept invitations to coffee or lunch.
Always.
Always. If scheduling allows.
Yeah. Anyway, so if you would, just share a little bit about who is the Michael Urch. And
Absolutely.
To answer that, just what's your story? How has the Lord worked His saving grace in your life? All the way up to what brings you to aspire to serve as a pastor.
Yeah, just some basic biographical information. I grew up in the small town of Byron, Minnesota. It's about 10 miles west of Rochester, Minnesota. And so went to the public school system there, small town. My parents were active and faithful churchgoers. And so grew up, First Baptist Church was the name of the church when I was little. They ended up building a new building and kind of doing the non-denominational thing. And they're now called Autumn Ridge Church, which is still there. My parents still attend that church. And I mean, as I've reflected on my childhood and my testimony, I don't necessarily have a moment that I can pick and say, like, this is when I was converted to believing in Jesus. As long as I can remember, I believed that the God of the Bible was real. I believed that Jesus saved sinners and me personally. I will say that my early childhood memory is a little foggy. And so you get like anything before second grade, and I just don't have very clear memories for whatever reason. With that being said, it was around 12 years old that I was baptized, and I believe that to be a true baptism. And as I think about my testimony, particularly because I don't have that conversion moment, I just think about what are some particular moments growing up where the Lord was working in that moment. And so one of them was in high school. I went to a public high school. Troy Faulkner was the math teacher, and Mr. Faulkner was a Christian. He would play Christian music in the classroom at times, and so it was just, you could kind of read between the lines, this guy's a Christian. And there was one time that I was handing in a math test. I don't know, it was like junior year. It was probably like trigonometry or something. And I was very worried about whether I had done well. And he could clearly perceive that. And Mr. Faulkner looked at me and he said, "Michael, what are you so worked up about? It's not like it's a matter of eternal life or anything." And that's all he said. And I just remember in that moment, the anxiety of that test just kind of dissipated. And I walked out with a lightness when I left school that day. And I think of that.
Did you have like more of a relationship with him or like any interactions?
I mean, he knew that I was a Christian.
Okay.
And he was, my sister was a couple years older, and he was familiar with our family.
Sure.
And so I think he knew it was appropriate to say something like that to me. But that I reflect a lot on that lightness when there's anxiety in my life today. And I often think about how, like, in junior year of high school, a math test feels like a big thing. And then, dating in college might feel like a big thing. And then, like, every stage of life, it feels like a big thing. But so often that answer of, it's not like it's a matter of eternal life or anything. And, like, eternity being settled can just bring the temperature of the anxiety down. And I'm very grateful for him making that comment. And so I think about that a lot, just as I go through life. Also, around that same time when I was in high school, I was interviewing to be a member at my church. I kind of have a bend of being a rule follower, just always kind of have. And so they encouraged, become a member. And I thought, well, they said to become a member, so I should. And so I went through this interview process. Reggie Nichols was the high school pastor at that time.
Did you know what churchmen were at that point?
I did not know what churchmen.
You had no aspirations to be a churchman.
I mean, I in a technical sense, I did, because I would say a church member falls under being a churchman. My passion for the churchmanship came later. And in that interview process, I completely flubbed a question, a fundamental question. He said, "Michael, why do you get to go to heaven?" And it's such a basic question. And I said, well, it's because I believe that Jesus saved me from my sins. But then I added something which made my answer wrong. And I said, and I try to be a good person. And Reggie, he's an Alabama guy. I can't imitate him, but he rebuked me in that moment. And he said, that's not the answer. And I think that he didn't believe that's actually what I thought. And he just articulated the gospel clearly to me. And it that moment makes me think, I think about that a lot, on just that sort of gospel fluency is a term that you've used a number of times, but just like in a moment where you're asked, can you say it rightly and not add anything to it? And so that was an encouragement to me. And Reggie Nichols was, he invested a lot in me in those years. There was a group of kids in the youth group where we would meet for a course of a year. We met at like 6 a.m. on a weekday, and we went through some public speaking material and some other material to kind of invest in us. And the culmination of that was actually I gave a talk to the church. I don't know if I would necessarily call it a sermon, but it was during the sermon time. But I would say my convictions of what a sermon should look like are different than they were then. And so there was a lot of encouragement toward that. And the way that I think about that phase of my life is I felt very pushed into that spotlight, into that type of thing. And just looking back, I really wasn't prepared for it. I don't think I had the character or maturity that one should have. And in my college years, I was very much avoiding that type of opportunity. And so I came up to college. I went to Bethel University.
We won't hold that against you.
Appreciate that.
As a Northwestern grad.
Appreciate that. The day I moved in, I had signed up to be in one of those rooms where it's a 2-person room, but you could say, hey, I'm willing to have a 3rd person in the 2-person room for a discount. And I signed up for that. And my thinking was, whoever else signs up for that, they must not be too high maintenance. They must be, pretty easy to get along with.
Or they just want cheaper.
Or maybe they just want a cheaper setup. But I'm happy to say that Elijah Morrissey was one of the guys that raised his hand. And so for everyone that knows Elijah.
Thrifty.
Yeah, that's right. Thrifty or crazy or something. Whatever I happen to be. But he was my roommate. And so I met Elijah. And then there was a girl that had gone to my high school. We were in the Nelson dorm, if anyone's familiar with Bethel. And she was in one of the suites in the same dorm. And Bree happened to be one of her roommates. So it happens that I met Elijah and Bree on the same day, which Elijah likes to brag about from time to time.
That he met you first?
he met me first. And he had lived with me longer because we were roommates for all 4 years at Bethel. And so he would... Once we got married, he would, chime in the first 4 years that he'd lived with me longer than Bree had. but we've outdone him now. Sorry, Elijah. Now we were part of campus outreach is a ministry through Bethlehem Baptist Church, and excuse me, with that campus outreach ministry, there were older students that were providing rides to Bethlehem Baptist Church. Mm-hmm. And so the only reason I started going to Bethlehem Baptist Church is because I just thought that people should go to church. And it was one of the few churches I could get a ride to consistently. And I remember Zach Simmons was one of the older guys. He was a junior when I was a freshman. And his friend Lenny would give Elijah Bree and I a ride to church every Sunday. And they would play Christian, like, metal music on the way to Bethlehem Baptist Church.
Christian metal?
Yeah, like heavy metal by Christian artists. And so that was my experience of rolling into Bethlehem Baptist Church.
Because that's what they play there.
Not at all. Not at all. And I was really blessed through the campus outreach ministry. I hadn't really been taught how to read the Bible well. And so inductive Bible study is a big emphasis of theirs, of just keep looking at the text and understand what it meant to the people at the time, that we could then bring it out to our time period and going through verse by verse through different letters and that type of thing. Mm-hmm. And I had never experienced that at all. The sermons at the church that I grew up on were about 15 minutes long, and they had 3 different points, and there was an outline with fill in the blanks in everyone's bulletin. So you could follow along and fill in the blanks and often kind of predict, because they're always the same letter, what the blanks are going to say. Mm-hmm. And so going from that to Bethlehem Baptist Church was, I mean, just realizing the depth of
flash.
Not at all. I think I think actually I was eager when I realized that depth was there, both in studying the Bible and in sermons. Mm-hmm. And I was soaking it up like a sponge, and very grateful for those things in my college years. And through campus outreach, sort of the model that they have is there's discipleship groups. And I think that's where we got the D group name from. Mm-hmm. And in those discipleship groups, so I was in a group, Zach Simmons was leading it, Elijah and I, and another student named Wes. And we went through John together my freshman year, and then kind of stayed in a group that Zach was leading his senior year. And then my junior year, I went and found freshmen to then lead in Bible study. Mm-hmm. And so there was this, we're going to give you the tools, and then once you have the tools, we want you to go and train others. And that kind of investing in and wanting to multiply the ability to study the Bible and do things like that, just very helpful to be in that environment and to be thinking that way. And even thinking of D groups now, being here, it's, how can we make sure that everyone's equipped with the tools needed, and just that desire for that to multiply, if you will. And so I really appreciate campus outreach ministry for a lot of reasons. And one of the other reasons you already alluded to is that they're paired with a local church. So a lot of college ministries are parachurch, and they're not paired with a local church. And I don't even know exactly where the conviction came from, but the more and more I think about it and thought about it, it's the local church is so important.
The Bible.
The Bible.
That's in the Bible.
Absolutely. But it just is something that it was kind of like, when I think of my conversion, it's like, I don't know the moment when, but at some point I was like, I mean, caring about the local church is really important. I stumbled across the word churchman at some point, and I was like, well, I want to be a churchman, because the churchman is invested in the local church. Mm-hmm. And it happens to rhyme with Urch if you say all Urch men are churchmen. So Judah and Cyrus are on the path. But that importance to me, I just can't really overstate how valuable I see the local church as the local body of Christ. And so when I think about Westview, and coming here and getting plugged in, and actually the story of how we joined Westview goes back to Elijah Morrissey. because it was at his...
It's like 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
That's right. It all comes back to Elijah. That's right. Shout out, Elijah. I hope you're listening. But it was at his and Natalie's rehearsal dinner, which we accidentally showed up late to. I can't remember why. And the only seats available were next to the Critches. Mm-hmm. And we were sitting at the table with the Critches. And I think we had met them at one point, like bumped into them. We were like I think we went with Elijah to a Great Havens concert, and the Critches happened to be there a couple years earlier, and like met them. And Elijah would talk about his friend from church that was all about catechisms for his kids and stuff like that. And so he had a little bit of that reputation just in my mind from hanging out with Elijah. And it was when we were sitting at that dinner, and for some reason, Zach started like humming the PJ Masks theme song.
Okay.
Which is PJ Masks, for those of you that don't know, it's like if you took the old Adam West Batman show, which is super corny,
okay,
and then you targeted toddlers with it, and just like this superhero into the night to save the day. But when I heard him do that, I was like, this guy is in the same life stage that I'm in. And like, I can understand why that song would be stuck in his head. And so, Bree and I had been thinking a lot about the church we were going to. We were still going to Bethlehem Baptist, which is in Mounds View. Mm-hmm. And we were living in Plymouth. Mm-hmm. And so to go from Plymouth to Mounds View is over 30 minutes. And one of the big emphases that they have, which is now the North Church, mm-hmm. Is their Wednesday night kids ministry stuff. And Judah was starting to get old enough to where we'd want to go, but the logistics were impossible. And that seemed like such a big part of church life. Mm-hmm. We had been talking off and on again about we're going to have to figure out somewhere else to go at some point, and it's going to have to be closer to us. And Bethlehem Baptist always had a church planting emphasis, and I always had thought it would be cool to be part of a church plant, just like in the back of my head. But I never wanted to be part of something like that until I could commit to an area. And so kind of the providence of being at that dinner and being in that life stage where it's like we need somewhere we can commit to long term. And we decided to visit when the Morrisseys were on their honeymoon, because I thought, what better time to go than when no one knows us that's at the church, and just see what it's like. And that was right when a lot of the COVID restrictions and things were still kind of happening. And I can't remember if there were masks at that time at Westview or not. But I do recall the first Sunday that we went, there were multiple people who came over to introduce mm-hmm. themselves. Yeah. And we had been going to Bethlehem Baptist North Campus, which, they have so many people, and they were still wearing masks at the time. And you didn't know, like, if you should go talk to people or not, or mm-hmm. if you should just quietly leave. And it was just very refreshing to be in a smaller environment where people were welcoming. And so we essentially decided right there, we're like, we're gonna come to Westview. And I mean, all the doctrine is downstream from Bethlehem, and so there weren't any concerns there. And mm-hmm. and we were just excited to be closer to the church that we were going to be attending. And so that's kind of what brought us to Westview. Yeah,
that's awesome. And I love hearing, I was saying this with when sitting down with Toby as well, but I love hearing these kinds of stories. And but the thing especially thinking of is the just hearing of, and I appreciate you mentioning by name the individuals that have been influential across your life, and just like hearing those kinds of details included in the story. I can't remember now offhand Toby did. I just like hearing it, just because it's not just some vague story, right? Like the particularities mm-hmm. of God's grace to you. Mm-hmm. And how there's similarities between the stories, but the details, the specifics are unique. I just love hearing those elements of people's stories, and just knowing that each of those people that you mentioned, mm-hmm. they have a story with half a dozen or more individuals that were influential in their lives, and just like thinking then of this whole kind of 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon type thing, right? But like this like whole nexus of relationships that then you could trace back all the way to the disciples, right? And like that's just a pretty remarkable thing to think about in the glory and God's providence throughout history, bringing you here to this place, to this church at this point in history, is a pretty remarkable thing. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Can you just share more on where the aspiration to pastor generally kind of started stemming from? You mentioned in high school having some opportunity kind of being pushed towards some public ministry things, but averse to that in college. So kind of where is that desire stemmed from?
Yeah. So I remember it was right around the time that I was turning 30, which would be 4 years ago, for those of you that are curious. I remember having coffee with Zach Critch and just talking about like some things. Like it's the first time I started thinking decades. I don't know if that's common at 30 to be like, well, what's the next decade look like? And I was talking a little bit about, I'm a financial advisor with my day job, and just with financial material and with Bible material, there are certain things that are taught well, but I think that there's this like missing discipleship on how to think about money well. Because a lot of it's like proverbs of how to, do things that will help you build wealth or other things like that. But it just felt like there wasn't a lot that was doing that I could tell from what I was reading. And someday maybe I'd like to try to write a book or something on that. And Zach kind of encouraged me to, well, why don't you think about what you need to do that? And so I set up a Twitter account where I started tweeting every day, just little thoughts that then turned into a Substack. It's the Reformed Wallet for anyone that's curious. I don't post very often.
But you just did within the last week, because I remember
I did
getting
post
the notification like, he's got a post out.
Yeah, I did post within the last week. There was, there's something about balancing my other responsibilities that make writing for the Reformed Wallet difficult. But essentially, I had started writing for the Reformed Wallet pretty consistently at first. And then at some point, again, it was a conversation with Zach Critch. And he was like, well, why don't you give an exhortation on that? And I was like, I would do that. And so I think Kill the Love of Money or something like that was the first exhortation I gave. I think that from doing that, it's like, well, why don't you give another one? And just started doing more exhortations and started thinking more in a way of how to, take the writings and the other things and make it helpful. And then when we were doing the Sunday school class through the Old Testament a little bit, a couple of years ago, had an opportunity to teach there. And I think I just found that I actually really enjoy giving the exhortations. I really enjoy doing that teaching. And it's like, okay, as I'm looking at the qualifications for an elder, I think of it as three main things. There's all the character elements of that are listed. So a man of good character, ability to teach. And so I have expressed that through exhortations, and I'll leave it to the church to judge. And then desire, I would say, is the third element. And I just sort of started feeling this almost just desire to scratch this itch of, I do want to be able to give exhortations and be able to encourage others in that way. And started leading a discipleship group a couple years ago, and just have been very blessed by that as well. And it just seemed that those things were kind of lining up in a certain way. There was a churchman group, which wasn't called the churchman.
No, it was not.
But I was the only one. I think I was the only one that came the first week for whatever reason.
I don't remember, but
you
were an early adopter.
Yeah, and I remember talking about it, and somehow I don't know if I suggested churchman or what.
You absolutely did at some point.
Yeah.
The Churchman Fellowship is indebted to you.
But I attended that Churchman Fellowship for a while, And I don't think that it was necessarily like raising my hand saying, hey, like, I want to be a pastor. But it was a couple years ago. I don't know if it was December or January from 2 years ago, where you approached and said, would you be interested in the Timothy Fellowship, which is for the purpose of developing pastors.
Yep.
And as Bree and I talked and sort of prayed through that, I did. And so that's been also, just for those that might not be familiar with what that process is, we started with very doctrine-oriented. We went through Grudem's systematic theology, some of Bavinck's Reformed dogmatics, and then Greg Allison's church history. And so that was
historical theology.
Or I'm sorry, historical.
Yes.
Yeah, historical theology. And that was all very helpful for me to go through. And then there were some papers and things we wrote along the way, and just continue to meet through the process of that, and started talking more about something that I really deeply appreciate about Westview is the home visits and the focus on private ministry, and really wanting to know the sheep and care for them as you care for the flock. And I would say that that's something that I just deeply appreciate about Westview, and would be part of pastoring the church. And so, I mean, through this couple-year process, it's been for the purpose of evaluating, what do you want to set forward as public candidates? And the answer is yes.
Yeah.
But that's sort of the development of going from, I mentioned that high school season was kind of being pushed into something that I don't think like I was well equipped for or desiring, to a season of, this is actually something that I would be eager to do and to serve in this way.
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of like some baby steps, or maybe like a sunrise or something, where it's just kind of a little bit at a time, and then all of a sudden the sun's there. Oh, it's daytime. That kind of experience of like, it's not like you've had this strong burning desire to serve as an elder for a long time, but it's just kind of been this slow, progressive kind of development. And then it's like, yes, this is...
I mean, I think that I always had maybe a pebble in my shoe of a sort of like, yeah, maybe someday I would be an elder.
Yeah.
And like sort of just thinking of like, what would one want to live their life like to maybe someday be an elder? But it was always kind of a maybe someday I'd want to do this. Even like leaving that high school season, like maybe someday I'd want to be an elder. Oh, here's an opportunity to learn how to really study the Bible and understand it. And like, here's a church that's going to feed me really well. And like, maybe someday. And I'd say that maybe someday was just kind of where I was for a long time.
Yeah.
And in Providence.
And all of a sudden, someday is today.
Yeah.
Kind of
Lord willing.
Yeah.
Lord willing.
But just as far as the desire goes.
Yes. And I think that like when you had approached Bree and I a couple years ago, I think that very much I was like feeling emphatically, yes, I want to do this. But I wanted to make sure Bree was on board with that. Yeah. And so she is.
Yeah.
and was.
Right. A couple streams flowing out of some of your comments.
Yeah.
First off, just what are some of the other influences on your walk with the Lord as you've matured as a follower of Jesus? I mentioned some of those individuals that were formative, but other books, resources, pastors, disciplers.
I have the advantage of having heard you ask Toby that question because I listened to his interview, so I did come with some in mind.
All right.
The first, I just say Charles Spurgeon.
Yeah.
I really appreciate his sermons, and I couldn't find this particular sermon, but in one of his sermons, he talks about the building of the temple in the time of Solomon, and how all of the cutting of the stones happens in the quarry, and not a sound is heard in the house of God. And he uses that as a metaphor to talk about our sanctification and suffering in this life, to then build the heavenly temple where there like is no more sanctification to be done. And just something like that Spurgeon does, to take something from the Old Testament and to use it as an illustration for a deeper spiritual reality, And now I can't read that passage on the building of the temple without thinking about sanctification and about the true temple. And that's just something that again and again, that is the way that Spurgeon just kind of writes and speaks. And I really appreciate that. I would say as well, I feel a kindred to Spurgeon because the lead pastor at my church growing up, was a graduate from Spurgeon's College. And he's British. C. John Steer was his name. Okay. He went by John, but his first name was Charles. I think that's what C stands for. Okay. But I feel just a kindred to, like, I'm a beneficiary from a graduate from the college that he started. In addition to that, J.C. Ryle, anything by Ryle. I mean, anything by Ryle. Holiness, Duties for Parents is great. Thoughts for Young Men. If you're a young man listening, look up Thoughts for Young Men. It's a fantastic. We
just had some young men at Westview going through that.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that they were doing that. That's really good. I would say John Piper in a secondhand sort of a way. Just coming into Bethlehem, he was on sabbatical. And so I didn't know who John Piper was. I didn't know anything about him. I didn't know I was at his church. But there's definitely like so much downstream from Piper in my life that, I mean, I can't not mention Piper. And then one other that I'll mention, while going to Bethlehem, Joe Rigney he preached 2 sermons on envy that were absolutely fantastic. I've listened to them again a few times. Yeah.
I think that's an illustration he uses.
But. And I remember he said something about sins don't hunt alone, but they're in packs like wolves, is something that he said in that sermon. And I think about that a lot. Just like if you find envy, it's not alone, or pride, or, there's a whole pack looking to take you down. Yeah. And so just that watchfulness. Those are a few of the things. I had thought of others, but I've forgotten them now. And so I have to mention, though, Michael Morales' book on Leviticus, Who Shall Ascend the Mountain? I think it's Who Shall Ascend the Mountain. But
the Lord?
The Mountain of the Lord.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. It's a great New Studies in Biblical Theology.
Biblical Theology.
Series. Excellent book. He's got an article, I think.
So this
summarizes the book.
And this was just a providential thing. You'll probably remember this. At the time, we had just finished that Union of Christ sermon series, and I had never heard of the Union of Christ before that. It's just a theological concept.
The most important doctrine you've never heard of.
Yeah. It is truly a super important doctrine. I don't even know how to overstate the importance of it. But in the book on Leviticus, he talks about how the beating heart of the book of Leviticus is union with Christ. It's like a line he has in there. And it was right after we finished Union with Christ.
So you're just hooked.
And I felt like, how I had never heard of Union of Christ, and how is that the point of Leviticus? And it was just the right thing for me at that season. And so very appreciative to that book. It's a little on the nerdy side, but so am I. So
yeah, that's great. That's great. So sharing some of that aspiration that's grown. I think it's Jeremy Rennie, who's got a book called Church Elders, and he talks about in there, if this is the right resource I'm remembering, he talks about how as you as a church, as a pastor seeking to develop rising elders, to be looking for guys that are pastoring before they're pastoring, to be serving, like carrying out the functions of elders before they're carrying the responsibility of it. It's just point being you're looking to see who the Spirit is gifting for this office, and that's who the Spirit's setting apart to serve in that office. That's kind of the gist of it. And just as an encouragement to you, that's manifestly something that's that I think of Zach I would certainly, confident David would say the same, but just in Zach's encouragement towards doing an exhortation, it's like, oh, I think this is a guy who would probably be capable and do this well, and likewise in carrying out these other functions. But you mentioned home visits being an aspect of church life that you've really appreciated, and just the value of the local church generally, hence the churchman label that you've wholeheartedly embraced. This will all lead up to this question. Why serve as a pastor? Why not just continue to serve as a churchman, but why serve as a pastor at Westview? Why would you want to do something like that?
I think that the ministry of the word and prayer are the two functions of the role of being a pastor. And I would say that I like just this desire to preach the word, not necessarily to preach a sermon. I'm just gonna say it doesn't necessarily have to be a sermon, but just this desire to preach the word. And I was thinking about earlier today, like what is one of the things that I'm really looking forward to that's different than what is the case right now. And the pastoral team meets regularly and prays through the membership together. And I think that like just that is something that's like, I would love to gather with you guys and pray for all the households by name in Westview. And so it's like this, I don't know, just this desire, or thirst or hunger for those expressions of the office that I just can't necessarily ignore now that they've, been made aware to me. And so, I mean, I would say that, I don't know if I would really, I mean, that kind of captures it for me. I just think, why not, I guess?
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard for me to imagine not serving as a pastor. It is, I do find it a little bit confusing to like talk to my parents about this, because if I say, hey, I'm going to become a pastor, it sounds like I'm going to quit my profession and become a pastor, which isn't what I'm planning to do if I'm voted in. And so, I mean, I would just say I can't see not doing it unless the church decides they don't want me. Yeah. Then I guess the Lord would speak in that way.
Yeah. Another thing you mentioned earlier was kind of the flip or the switch getting flipped in talking with you. It must have been about 2-ish years ago in starting the Timothy Fellowship and considering praying together on if you would start that journey. Yeah. And so, oh, yes, like this is something that I want to do, and she's supportive of it. So can you just talk a little bit more along those lines of Bree's thoughts about serving as a pastor, as a lay elder, but then especially in the context of family life with all of the urchins that the Lord has entrusted to you?
Yes.
That's your own endearing term, not my derogatory term.
They are the urchins. Yes. Absolutely.
Love it. Your branding and marketing for your family is stellar.
Thank you.
So just speak to some of those dynamics and how you and Bree envision being able to take on the responsibility of serving as an elder when you've got little children, you've got a wife, you've got a home to take care of, you have a job as well that you will continue to work in. Yes. So how will you do all of the things? Yes. How do you see that playing out?
That's a great question. And I think that's probably the part that Bree and I have talked most about, is just from a capacity standpoint. How does this make sense? And I would say that, I mean, there are certain things that regardless of pastoring that we would continue to do anyway. As far as D group, and we launched a community group the other month. I mean, doing exhortations from time to time, and a lot of those things that aren't really, nothing's being added to those, but we would gladly continue to do regardless. And I think that I've tried to be very thoughtful in sort of stacking things where it's like, hey, if we're hosting a community group, It's really something for my family. We call it a feast, and the kids get very excited about it. And I think a lot about like wanting to, in pastoring, bring the family with me as much as possible. And I'm very grateful for Westview being structured in a way that lends to that, where it's very much like bring your family with you, two things. And so talking through it with Bree, we both feel that I wouldn't be neglecting my other responsibilities to the family or to my profession, although I'm a lot more concerned about my family than I am the profession. And there's sort of this sort of 2 Corinthians 8 is a chapter that I deeply appreciate. It's about generosity. But he talks about them giving beyond their means. And there's sort of this like, well, it's not giving financially beyond our means, perhaps. And maybe it's not actually giving beyond our means, but there is this category for like eagerly wishing to give beyond their means. Mm-hmm. And I would say that both Bree and I feel that way about serving Westview, whether that would be pastorally or otherwise. And it's a remarkable thing when I just think about capacity in general in my life, because we didn't have the capacity to have one child. And now we have 4 children, which we didn't have the capacity for either. And the Lord just continues to be gracious. Yeah. And so I think there's trusting in his faithfulness as well. But that's some of the things that we've talked through. Bree's not necessarily super excited to be a pastor's wife. Okay. That label itself is intimidating.
Sure. And whatever it is that she thinks that label might entail or mean.
Yeah. But now she's going to listen to this and be like, that's actually not what I think at all. So, Bree, I'm so sorry if I've misrepresented you in any way.
I'll interview her next week. She'll love that, I'm sure.
I don't know if she'd be too excited, but.
So what I'm kind of hearing in that is that many of the functions, time commitments, that are included in pastoring at Westview are things that you're doing already, largely, not entirely, but many of the things. And it's the way in which you just go about it, maybe, is the key difference.
I think that's pretty accurate. And this is gonna maybe sound somewhat crazy, but I'm a financial planner by trade, and I think toward the future a lot. And like, I'm thinking like generations to the future, and thinking just as a family, like Urches build churches is something that I
There's that
pray.
Family branding again.
I know. So, but just like something that I desire for our family to do as part of being in our family. It's something that we do together, that we work toward. I mean, I would love Westview to be a church that, my children or grandchildren might attend someday, or some plant of Westview. Yeah. And when I think about like that as what we're aiming for, there are sacrifices that we make today to hopefully faithfully work towards that end. I mean, unless the Lord builds the house, we labor in vain. Yep. But we pray that he would build a house. Yep. And so I don't necessarily get to watch a lot of TV shows or some other entertainment sort of things these days. And I'm okay with that. Yeah. And I think there's not going to be necessarily a lot of room for that. But
yeah, that's good. I'm just thinking, met a guy about a week ago who was kind of commenting similarly that he wants to spend his life. He doesn't want to get to the end of the race and have more gas in the tank. I'm like, oh yeah, I could have gone harder. Like I didn't quite run as hard as I could have. Right, just likening or thinking as Paul does, the apostle, comparing the Christian life to a race. Paul's keen in on the endurance side of it, but just thinking you don't want to get to the end of the race and be like, oh yeah, I probably could have gone a little harder. I didn't go very hard. I kind of coasted. Yeah. And just that, I want to spend my life. Yeah. Was just talking we had our pastors and deacons and wives annual get together last night, and just talking about a little bit on Paul in, I think, 2 Timothy 4. I can't remember if it's 1 or 2 Timothy now, but he talked about how he is already being poured out as a drink offering. And that dynamic of Christian ministry, broadly speaking, not unique, I think, to serving as a pastor, but to the Christian life and the task of making disciples. And that sense of feeling like, yes, I'm being poured out, but it's as a sacrifice. Like, this is for a good purpose. It's not just being spent just to be spent or just to grind it out because grittiness is a value. But no, I'm being poured out for this good purpose, namely the glory of Christ being advanced through the proclamation of the gospel and the raising up of disciples. So, I don't know, that's a little tangential, I suppose, but
so this is probably tangential as well. But Forrest Dickinson, what's his name? He wrote the book Crispin's Rainy Day, if you're familiar with that picture book. He also narrated Sir Bat-a-Lot, if you're familiar with that picture book.
Both lost on me.
Yeah, so he's
hopefully these are not like classics that I've deprived.
No, they're not. They're not
Maybe
classics.
my kids have read it.
Your kids are probably too old to appreciate because they're for younger kids. But he's an illustrator, and he wrote Crispin's Rainy Day. It's through Canon Press, and Canon Press did like this documentary of him making that book. And in that documentary, he talked about, as an artist, there are so many artists that do their artist thing and don't take their family with them. And so they make great sacrifices, and then they sort of lose their connection to their family, and they become sort of loner and isolated. And he was talking about, I want to bring my family with me on what I'm doing and have them be part of this journey. And I just bring that up because that's a framework that I sort of think of when it's like, well, if Urches Build Churches is a slogan that actually is going to have any meaning, it's going to be, come along with me, kids, and let's see how we can give to Westview. Let's see how we can encourage the people. And I mean, building churches isn't about putting bricks and mortar down and having a church building, because as Westview has proven, we don't need a church building to be a church. It's true. It's about the people and investing in, the sanctification of yourself and others, and expressing what giftings you have to do that. And so I would say that with that, and I mean, the spiritual gifts that we had preached through last year, was that this year? Whenever that was, that we talked through spiritual gifts, there's this like desiring to use them if you have them. And so that kind of comes to the same place of
kind of that stewardship mentality as well.
The
Lord's entrusted this gift to me.
Right.
I use it for the building up of the body. Because if I'm not, then I'm not being faithful with what the Lord has given me. Yeah, and I would say I just feel that way. Wanted to express that gifting or ability because it's been given for use. Yeah, that's great. So as you think about church life, think about stepping into this office as a pastor.
Yeah.
What are things that come to mind for you as it relates to areas that there are opportunities for Westview to grow in?
Our tagline is following Christ in all of life. And all of life is a pretty big category.
Pretty comprehensive.
Yep.
I'm not sure you could get more comprehensive. And
so, I mean, there's a way in which, like, is there any direction we can't grow more?
Sure.
But that's not what your question is getting at. I think that if there was one thing that I would just deeply desire for Westview, is that in our covenant affirmation, or our covenant for life together, what do we call it? Just the covenant?
Member covenant.
The member covenant. At Bethel, it was a covenant for life together, so that's where that came from. It talks about maintaining personal and family devotions. And I would love to see every household in Westview maintain personal and family devotions regularly. And I feel especially for those that have children, you don't just give a kid a Bible and say, go read it.
Have at it.
Right. I think it's 18 years of this is how we go through your Bible, and let's do it together. And so I would love to see more of that. I mean, I haven't done a poll or anything, but it's hard to make the time to make that happen on a regular basis. And I would just say that doing it a little bit more than you're doing it now is a great place to start and get those reps in. That's something that I would love to see everywhere at Westview. Yeah. And I say that because Bible wasn't really talked to in my household growing up. And it wasn't until college that I really learned to read the Bible. And I just wonder, like, how much of a missed opportunity is that? And so that's one of the first things I would say. Kind of hand in hand with that would just be, we have a lot of families that have kids that aren't quite to school age. And I would love for those families to have a clear plan for what are we going to do for education that isn't public school. Because I think public school is not a good idea. And happy to talk about that more. I know there's a lot that could be said there. But I just, as an example, and this is, again, just like the Lord giving me a moment that I look back on often. It was going to kindergarten with Judah one morning. It came up somehow. We just talk on the way to school. He learned that my school never taught me anything about Jesus growing up. And so we're driving. We go to Agape Christi, where Jesus is talked about often.
Yes, he is.
And he just sat there quiet for a minute. And then he said, Papa, that's like the most important thing.
Out of the mouth of babes.
Yeah. And I just take that moment and I'm like, it is the most important thing.
Yeah.
And I think education is an extension of discipleship and training our kids up in the way they should go. And I just think that demographically, we have a lot of families that are not quite to where you have to decide on school. And I think it's good to be a few years ahead of that as you start thinking about it.
Yeah.
And so I was actually pitching the idea to Zach Critch and Aaron Hansen about doing some kind of a Christian school night at Westview and have some River Tree folk, Agape Christi, some homeschool families.
I think Stephen has also been mulling on something similar.
Oh, yeah. I think I've talked maybe a little bit with Stephen about that too. But doing something like that, I would be very excited about.
Yeah.
If Urches build churches, maybe they build schools too. I don't know. Well,
trying to think of how to work school into
it doesn't rhyme.
No.
It doesn't rhyme.
Maybe there's
but this is just a little bit of me thinking of our times where what is the urgent need for society right now? I mean, I don't think anyone would disagree that it's broken, deeply broken. I'm just talking about U.S., the United States. Society is broken. And I think it's broken because people don't know Jesus.
Yes.
And I think that people know Jesus primarily through faithful churches.
Yes.
And then I would say that faithful churches often have children who need to be discipled by faithful schools.
Okay.
And I think that if we just think strategically about how do we...
I don't know that I'd say that they need to be discipled by faithful schools. Faithful schools can play a massive role in the discipling influence on children.
Yes.
Parents
I get your distinction, and I don't disagree with it.
A very valid and...
Yeah. I would just say that I think of education as an extension of discipleship, which is primarily the responsibility of the parents and a homeschool. I agree with your distinction. Yeah. But I mean, I think that the urgent need of our hour is to have more faithful churches and then also, God willing, more faithful schools so that more people can not just come to the moment of conversion, but actually be brought up in maturity under Christ. And so, I mean, that's a couple of things that I would be very excited to see more conversations about at Westview.
Love it. Absolutely.
I thought you might.
There's scores more that I'm not saying because this is about you, not about my thoughts.
Fair enough. Maybe we'll have to do a separate podcast on other topics.
How about when Paul starts out his letter to the Corinthians, his first one.
Yeah.
He doesn't dive in, bashing them.
Yeah.
He doesn't just launch in rebuking them like maybe a high school pastor does in a membership interview.
I had that coming.
He starts out highlighting his gratitude to the Lord for them.
Yeah.
And just makes reference to the effective grace of God towards the Corinthians. There's a lot that's broken, right? As we saw when we walked through that series, through that book as a church. There's a lot of brokenness, a lot of church problems needing gospel solutions. Question to you, just what evidences of God's grace have you seen at Westview? I think you've mentioned them or alluded to them over the course of our conversation so far, but just to call attention to it, what evidences of grace would you point to in envisioning writing a letter? Maybe not quite like 1 Corinthians, hopefully. There's not quite as much dysfunction.
Sure.
But in starting a letter in that kind of a way.
Yeah. Evidences of grace. I mean, some things that I'm really grateful for is I love the liturgy that we have every Sunday, and that it follows the gospel story, essentially. And I would say that I'd never attended a church that had a more liturgical feel. I mean, I know in the grand scheme of liturgy, it's not that liturgical, but the flow of the service is something that I'm really grateful for. That we do communion every week is something that I'm really grateful for. And I know that some of these things sound like, that's nothing all that special. But I think it's sometimes the faithful, ordinary things that it's not, I mean, those things were decided on for a reason, and we do them for a reason. And I've been just really grateful for that rhythm in life. I mentioned the Union of Christ series because I didn't know anything about the Union of Christ. I mentioned the spiritual
union with.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, union with.
Christ.
Yes.
I think
the union with.
A little bit different topic.
Clearly, I don't know it well enough if I can't say it correctly.
Our union with Christ.
Our union with Christ.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a topic that I wasn't even really necessarily aware of. I would say the fact that the first 6 weeks that we attended Westview, we had been in the homes of probably 5 different families.
Wow.
And I mean, part of that was because we hopped in a community group that had different hosts. Okay. Like ping-ponging a little bit. I don't think I was ever in anyone's home when I attended Bethlehem Baptist Church, other than a few close friends that I might have had. And I was never in a pastor's home. And that's just been an immense, my kindred for Westview has been so strengthened by that, the community group format, and to regularly share meals together. Trying to think what else I would say. I mean, there's snippets from sermons here or there. I know that in this particular sermon series, there's that vexation and joy. I mean, David talked about it with the providence today. And I was thinking back, you had a sermon where occupied with joy was one of the phrases in the text that you really highlighted. I can't remember what chapter that was.
I think it's the end of 5. Ecclesiastes 5.
If you search occupied with joy in your Bible app, it'll pop up. But I think that there's this sort of almost theology of feasting that I've been thinking through with this Ecclesiastes series, where it's like, well, as a financial planner, right? You could just put more money away, and then you'll have more wealth later and spend less. Almost like a Scrooge impulse to spend money by having people over for a meal means that you don't have the money anymore. And there's this, and this is maybe me just leaning into the finance passion project of mine a little bit, but there's this just thinking through even that, like as we host a community group, it would probably be it would be more convenient to not and yet
Sure.
it's so valuable too. And so those are a few things that come to mind. I'm sure there's many more that could be mentioned, but
yeah, that's good. Just thinking how again, earlier comments on being poured out like a drink offering. There are demands of hosting the community group. It's not just the purchasing whatever you're gonna eat, but it's cleaning before and cleaning the dishes after, and the energy output in hosting. But yeah, those things are like money in that you can save them, give them, or spend them. What are you gonna? How are we gonna use it? You're gonna do something with it. So what will you do with it?
Well, and I just think like next time you're in your community group, if you just close your eyes for a moment and hear the din of the meal,
sure,
and the just the fullness of life in a room that is sitting for a meal together of friends. I mean, I'm so grateful to be able to have that sound in my house.
Yeah.
Like there are people everywhere who have silence in their house or the sound of a television.
Sure.
And and that's all they have. And here we can have community.
Right. People.
Groups.
Who are united with Christ.
Yes.
That we are experiencing union with around a meal.
Yes. I mean, it's beautiful.
It is.
And I think that like when I think about my kids, like I want them to experience that kind of beauty and long for it when they have left my home.
Sure.
And I think that that's like you can really win hearts with that for like this Christ honoring feast in a way that hearts might be lost if you never do anything cheerful,
right?
or joy filled like that.
Yeah.
And so
I'm thinking of I think Rod Dreher's got a book called "Live Not by Lies," which is pulling from Russian. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. I want to say Solzhenitsyn. I don't know if that's actually his name or not. I'm blanking on it right now. I think that's who it is. But talking about like this dynamic of feasting in the cultural formation and the cultural preservation, and like how it's in a sense like a subversive act in a hostile environment. Feasting is. So just thinking, and I think what Dreher was talking about is just how that dynamic of like those kinds of rhythms, both the community group type rhythm, but then the annual rhythm, and I think especially Resurrection Sunday, Easter Sunday, and like the high day of feasting. Like all right, we're pulling out all the stops. Like we're doing the good meal, right? For that one especially, and how that is like an act, a subversive act in a world dominated by sin and darkness and death. That no, we're feasting because we worship the risen Christ, and just that dynamic. And I just remember that's just resonated with me and has stuck with me. But
we're feasting because the war is won. There's are you familiar with Every Moment Holy? So they have a liturgy for feasting with friends, and at the very end of that liturgy, it talks about it being an act of warfare. And so
that's great.
I tether that to John Piper has like warfare,
wartime lifestyle,
and like feasting, act of warfare. And if you combine those two together, I think that
that's Joe Rigney's The Things of Earth.
It's very much Things of Earth, or Strangely Bright if you prefer the condensed version.
Reader's Digest.
Both of those are great books. But I mean, it is. I really do think it is a profound act of war. To feast with friends.
That's great.
And so, I would say those, all that and more. I mean, I would say just in my life, I've only been a member of 3 different churches, and this is the one I have felt the most kindred and love for.
Praise the Lord.
And I could go on about all the reasons, but I think I probably mentioned enough.
I was thinking I could sit here and chat with you for another few hours. So,
well, we could talk more when our recording's done. I do want to. One thing I wanted to say, if I could.
Yes, that's where I was going next. Is there anything else that you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to take a moment to honor you.
That's not what I meant for you to.
I know, but you said I could say whatever I want. But I think that there's a lot of churches the size of Westview 2 years ago where the pastor doesn't necessarily have an emphasis on how do I develop more pastors. And so I just wanted to take a moment to honor you and say, I mean, this is like Toby and I being brought forward has been in the works for 2+ years. And it's really been something that you've been praying and working towards along with the rest of the pastoral team. And it's been a work that is also another just act of grace from Westview and to me personally. And I just wanted to thank you for that. And I wanted to take this time about me to share that.
Thank you. I'm grateful. It's been wonderful getting to know you guys more over those couple of years in the Timothy Fellowship meetings that we've been having. So I've loved it and look forward to many more good conversations. Mm-hmm. So,
my final words would be, if anyone would like to have my family for dinner or would like to meet for coffee or lunch, if possible, happy to try to fit that in before the vote for the pastoral candidates.
Yeah.
And if not, happy to do it after. But I will do whatever we can from a scheduling standpoint, and I will not turn down an invitation. And so I'd be more than happy to do that. And I also must commend Toby to everyone. He is a man of great character. And I think is eminently qualified as a candidate.
That's great. Well, just pulling up my phone here. The members meeting, again, is Sunday, January 11th, God willing. So at that meeting is when we will formally act on the pastoral team's recommendation to call both you and Toby to serve as pastors. Toby had highlighted this, not a competition or either,
no,
or not two candidates in a vote in that sense, but two recommendations regarding both of you guys. So January 11th. So by all means, do reach out to Michael. Might even offer up Bree as well if there's particular questions on home life and what that looks like.
Absolutely, and I mean we'd be happy to come together as families, or you could come over to our place, or we're happy to make that work one way or another. We could do a phone call depending on what it is, although in person beats phone calls in my opinion. But
Zoom, just meet in the middle.
Yeah, we could do Zoom too.
No.
I mean,
well, very good. Thanks for making the time to come and chat with me.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you all for tuning in and listening. And like I said, after the conversation with Toby, if there are other questions that you have, not directly for Michael, but just about pastors, elders at Westview and what this process looks like, or other thoughts, considerations that you think the present pastoral team in this iteration of Dave, Zach, and I, that we should be taking into consideration or be thinking about ahead of that members meeting in January, please reach out and let one of us know, and we can be chatting more as well. So, but hopefully these 2 episodes talking with these 2 guys has been a helpful intro. Especially if you don't know either of them particularly well, and maybe you've just heard them doing exhortations on Sunday, that this has been an opportunity for you to hear from these brothers at a little bit more personal level, and in a way that doesn't have to be replicated 30 different times. So hopefully this has served you. Thanks for listening.